what brings you to the Basis Project? I mean, you talked some pretty serious stuff the other day.
It's amazing. I've been following you. I've actually been, I don't want to say a closet fan, but I've been following actually a lot of your teachings and what you've been exposing. And it's really incumbent upon people that we have to bring this kind of information out. So I have a lot of the different people that you've interviewed as actually friends of mine on Facebook through
Wow.
social media.
Yeah.
So, from Sarah and Max Spires and stuff, and I was aware of what was going on with James Casbolt and Maureen Fenton. The last year and a half, I've actually been into doing my own radio show. I was at actually Dark City Radio over there in the UK,
Oh, right.
the Anglo, with Paul Hayden and stuff. And we recently joining up with Dave Scott at what's called space.radio.com. And I've
Okay.
been a frequent guest at Revolution Radio with Stephen Day Kelly and Keith Roberts and, of course, Terry Johnson and Mona Radler. So I've kind of been in the circle and been with Santos and doing some different things along that, basically what we call the truth movement. And my background, I grew up actually I arrived in Kamloops. Some people think it's a British Columbia jurisdiction in Canada. I would use other jurisdictional things of the Arius Empire, and so I would use the original terminology like the Secwepemc Nations. But I grew up in Saskatoon and attended the University of Saskatchewan, and I was a registered nurse in neonatal intensive care for a lot of years. And then the father of my children, actually, Allison and Alexander Fraser Macdonald, their father was John Paul Kwok, which turned out was Jesuit trained at Pope Pius and a lawyer in town. And there was a lot of disclosure coming out right when the children were very young, which now I know to be the MK Ultra Project to do with the child molestation, which would have been the satanic and like the ninth circle ring. So I'm quite involved with, let's say, Alfred Laminat Weber. I knew Kevin Annette. I've been following what was going on. Because of what happened with my children and their disclosures, I, of course, went, as I thought a dutiful mother, to the Saskatoon City Police Force and other things that were happening along here. And in turn, they tried to basically take the children away. So I realized there was something very strange going on. And in dealing with some of the psychologists, Dr. Jerry Farthing, my girl Allison started making disclosures. And it had to do with what was going on with the lawyers and different things. And there was a huge case going on at the time here. And I'm not sure if you heard about it, Miles, but it was called the Martinsville child case. And it was actually about a whole bunch of children that were disclosing child molestation and satanic rituals that were being done. And Martinsville was a tiny little, basically, town, maybe about 15 minutes north of Saskatoon. And by the way, for indigenous purposes and ley lines and vortexes, that's where the second largest medicine or cosmic medicine wheel is on the continent here. So I've been with a lot of the tribes. And because of that, I have the teachings. And because of, as a clan mother, going back to the original tribal laws, which many of us were white, or the original star seeding, as Patty Broussard likes to call, in a galaxy far, far away, how we got here.
Now, this is very, very important. I'm very interested in this.
Yes. And so what happened is Allie and Alex started disclosing it. At that time, they started playing, the children make disclosures, they take them away. They wanted to, see what they were saying. Yeah, it would
Now,
take
who
them.
is they? When you say they, can you describe who's the
Yeah,
they is?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to expand on that. The they group, I shouldn't say they, but it would be their father, John Paul Kwok. There were also different police officers involved in Saskatoon City Police. And again, Jerry Farthing decided they wanted to analyze the children. And they required a focused custody access or supervised visits, which I had no idea at the time so much about what you would call straw man or birth certificates and the implications of that, driver's license, all that sort of thing. And also what it had to do with the DNA and the bloodline and the lineages, as I've just been talking last night again with Cynthia Marie Brewer. So I'm quite well aware how the funding of the IMF and all this came to be in the Saskatoon Trust funds back to the Vatican. So going back to what happened with the children, after they made the disclosures, I actually became involved later with a very good friend of mine now, who is actually Claudia Bryden. And Claudia Bryden was the actually RCMP officer that these children were all making disclosures to. And of course, they came after her. So I went to try and assist her as a amicus curiae or a friend of the court. Because of what I was doing, I think I've been involved in every court system in there. So from the family law division to the provincial court to the Queen's Bench court. So I learned very quickly, probably 2,000 ways what not to say to the judges in there. However, it came to the point once I learned about what was called the premier or noble savage, or the women of the Great Spirit, i.e. clan mothers, tribal women, we all come off one tribe. Once I got into this and learned about being presented original custom seals, usages, laws, practices, that you go back to your original ways of doing things. And again, my background, that's how when we present ourselves with my Baba or Vedma.
When you say the original ways, are you talking about common law or before the arrival of the settlers or with the native
Absolutely, way before all of that. It predates this. This goes back to when you start talking about Enil, Enki, and the Nin for Hague, the Hague being the Hague court. So this is actually what we're setting up with the assistance of Patty Elbersard, because Patty, a former sergeant for NASA, and also Peter Lougheed, and was part of the Iraqi, but led the actual freedom team for the US Army. Also set up their communications, missiles, ballistics, and communication systems, is my new best friend for the last 3 years. And we have been disclosing many things on Facebook. So because of those disclosures and what happened with my children, that was a huge pivotal aha moment and epiphany. So that led into standing up into the courts. And basically what I was doing was now being, beyond an advocate, really, but actually you have to be able to speak on your own to these people and present yourself appropriately to the court. Once I learned that the actual tribal law or the first premier law is actually over what most people, where they have been deceived at with these birth certificates and stuff, it's called the corpus juris secundum. So that's what we call second world, and that means the people that are dead to the letter of the law. So it's kind of like the 10 commandments up here. And if you break them all, you got roped into these countries, basically, or the corporations, or the corporal. And so then the assigning of basically birth certificates, driver's license, passport, some sort of identification. Most of the women, what happened is through the DNA. Very much I concur with what happened with Cynthia Marie Brewer.
You've sent some very detailed DNA data. We can go on to that later.
Yeah. And Patty got in with my blessings and is acting and actually doing these actions on my behalf because I've given the commandment to do that. So we've gone into basically the NCBI, which is basically the headquarters for the Human Genome Project, and we've extracted all the data. So this is going to be better than a Snowden exposure by the time we've all done. There are thousands and thousands of people that have been tampered with all the DNA, and this has to do with the splicing and including with the alien DNA and the genetic mutations of the different people and the different strands going back to what we saw with Lloyd Pye. So it's kind of an extrapolation is what we've been doing. So I've been putting forth this, and all the data that we collected for over 3 years was actually taken off the internet, removed, and actually last night we've had some of our close friends and our IT people here, Callie, their cell phones have been, taken, and they're actually appeared to be on air last night while we were actually sitting here, the two of us. So we were watching all our computers and our electronics being activated by a secondary source, which was not here last night. So we know this kind of thing goes on. So
that's remote access and switch on.
Absolutely. But we were sitting here watching it all being remote accessed last night and switched on.
Have you thought of engaging with that? Do you think that's an artificial intelligence? The computers seem to be working in our favor against whatever this is, the computer systems themselves.
Yeah, I've been dealing, Miles. My background is actually, I was nursing, as I said, and actually interior decorating for a while as well. But prior to that, I went in once they found out about what was going on. My whole life kind of had an aha moment. It was the courts standing up, and I've got all the precedent cases of not to file even taxes, by the way. So I'm actually quite famous out here in the truther movements. And now I have judges actually bowing to me and understanding, and other lawyers now and female lawyers coming to assist me when things have been put forth. But the AI, as you talked about it, or artificial intelligence, I've been dealing with that for over a decade. I'm also a quantum practitioner, so I set up my own state of the
Sorry,
art.
how do you interface with it? How have you been dealing with it?
It's an amazing process. If people want to look this up, it's called SCIO, SCIO, or it's called the QXCI over there. And we also have an Indigo machine, or ECDoctor. This was developed by Dr. Bill or William Nelson, and he's got something called Immune that they set up in Budapest. Over here, what happened is I saw the machines running, and they were amazing technology that was being used basically,
Now,
you
what
know, like
machines running?
it's an actual radio.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I'm going to take people into here is that you can look this up. And Bill Nelson developed this scale machines. It's a form that is one of the largest biofeedback machines you've ever seen. So we can access through intelligences or whatever. It's a form of radionic, like free energy, like Tesla. So we have a scalar machine. So I've, dealt with scalar technology, 0 point, tachyon, bioresonance. It does Kirlian photography, the gas visualization discharge, but it does about 9,000 tests. So I can look at the chakras, how they're lined up on you. I can see the aura scan if there's breaks in the field. So right now we know with, like, say, Fukushima, or with the nuclear detonation, or the amount of radiation on the planet right now that's happening, and all the, loss. We're having a loss of basically methane. As we can see the plumes up there. We've seen the loss completely almost of all the ozone. And in certain areas, when Patty and I went in, for example, we could see all the nuclear reactors actually melting down where you are. And they're not disclosing this to the general populations. People know.
Now, I'm in England. Are you saying there's meltdown here of nuclear reactors in England?
Yes, if you look through Patty L. Broussard, or anyone goes to Patty L. Broussard and click on her photos and click on the albums, you'll see an entire UK disclosure that we've gone into, and that was months ago, that some of these areas are over 400 and more. So depending on if you know about radiation, Chernobyl was around 300, evacuation should be 150. Some of these are over 400. So we could actually see in that area, because last year I was dealing with someone in your proximity that was assisting me, was Lucas Monday, Andrew Wing, who also has got a great background in tribal law and assisted me in doing some of, even with my boy Alexander, the flag as you see here, that's a peace flag above me. That's not a country war flag. So that shows the seals, the crest, coat of arms, and DNA of the clan mother that goes back thousands of years. So that's been gifted to me. So what happened is when we looked at these particular radiation levels, we can see the meltdown and the containment. We could actually see where basically huge areas were that were actually radioactive with no reactors, because they were obviously using this as a secondary dumping site. But people don't.
There's going to be a connection with this and the Greys and the electrical supply
Absolutely.
system. But are these the west coast of England and Wales?
Absolutely. And we can actually, Patty's got all the detail, or we have all the stuff now, of where the actual US military bases are, but also where the alien bases are. And in here, what we have is actually all the inner Earth, Middle Earth, but also the deep underground military, all the ley lines. So where I'm sitting right now today, I'm beaming to you, happily and excitedly, out of Medicine Hat. Some people think it's Alberta. I'd call it a different jurisdiction. It's now the New Camelin. It's being set because we're actually from what's called the White Tribes, or the White Bear. So it correlates to DNA, like the Ursa Major. I do Vega or Solarianism myself, but when we start talking about things, we go back to those original seed pools. So mine is off what we call Anglo. Some had the Noah's Ark Treaty is what it was called. It was called the Isis Covenant. It was also called the Camel's Eye. It's easier to go to heaven and through the Camel's Eye. But that's what those obelisks are about. So all the Anglos are angels, and Saxons.
Yeah, this is the mix of current language is distracting, so we got to redefine our language.
Yeah, and Mercia, Northumbria, and all the Cleopatra tribes, all those white tribal people, not white race, but white tribals, actually had that Noah's Ark peace covenant. It was kind of like a divine alchemical marriage is how we look at it. So if someone was in the Israeli tribes or Black or Arabs, they would have it being known as the Solomon Seal or Star of David. The other one would be if they were Asia Minor, Asia, Palladium of Troy. But the red tribes, the three red tribes, would have had canes of authority, wampum belts, and also what they call the Peace Pipe Treaty. So these are the same thing, potato, potato, we have the same thing. And so this is what I'm standing on here. So I went to Cypress Hills, and we've also set up a website for people on Facebook called Cypress Hills of Canada, but it shows we're on the ley lines, how we're directly in line. We've lined it all up directly to Stonehenge, actually. And we can recreate Stonehenge now with the crystal organite walls and reset the DNA.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some deals about Stonehenge was reactivated in the 50s, but it was too powerful, so English Heritage deactivated it.
Yeah, and actually over here it was quite interesting because this will correlate when I go into, basically these are actually arrest warrant I put out and went to Kamloops. That's why it's important when I say I arrived in Kamloops, and I'll just use the Gregorian. I use a different calendar. I was a little monkey. But what I'll do, if you go to 1320 or the law of time, we use different calendar systems because they've been all bastardized or butcheredized through that sort of stuff with Gregorian, Julian, and also George Washington changed it as well, which most people don't know. And so this is actually a copy of the arrest warrant that I went into Kamloops to speak to Sergeant.
Okay, just a second there. Why were they changed? What was the reason for them being changed, and what have you changed it back to?
Well, what we're doing is that the original calendars, was people, that's when you're going to be looking at things of pole shift or things of significant or the changing of, dawn of the age of Aquarius. We need to know things better for timing. And so a lot of people are on artificial times or artificial calendars, and they can't function, so they're out of natural law. But what this did is when I went, this was actually a copy of the arrest warrant to basically arrest the one known as Elizabeth, who is falsely acting as a de facto queen that's not as sovereign. And so these were things that were accepted, filed into the RCMP in Kamloops, because there's no statute of limitation on murdering of children from the residential schools that were done in 1964 in October. So when I arrived in January...
This is a Canadian case involving children. The Queen, you're talking about the Majesty of the Queen.
Elizabeth, yeah. Battenberg, Windsor's, all that sort of thing. And so that's why technically when you look at this and what Patty and I have done, when people want to learn about their lineage, you technically go matrilineally, just like the Druid and Druidess stuff. We know that we can,
you're down the female line. Yeah.
At least we know who delivered, right? We know about implants, we know about all sorts of things that are going on from the ET and all those sort of extra, again, they're contracts that were done, in here that are not sanctioned by the clan mothers.
When you mention ET, can you describe what type, or is that a question that's too broad?
Well, I've been a bit of a contactee, we'll just say, for several years myself right now. So I'm starting to get into contacts and dealing with people. Dr. Tony Wright Minervino will be coming up here shortly. He's at thehealingbusiness.com. He's also a contactee and holds basically like what they call the white teaching feather for the 12th altar. So he's trained in Metatronic, Melchizedek's lineage and stuff like that. And again, these people are contactees as well. So I've been dealing with a lot of people like Captain Matt Steele, Captain Randy Kramer, Captain K, that kind of thing. And so there are different people that are starting to do this. That's where it comes in very much to know that the area here that we are is that this area where we are in Medicine Hat is just minutes away from what we call CFB or Canadian Air Force Base Suffield, which is connected triangularly. Basically, you'll probably laugh if you see the Deep Underground Military Base, if I give you those things at Patty's, is it goes from Suffield to Q552 Nelson, as people think of British Columbia. So that was the Casbolt, all the cloning centers there. And
so
then,
you're backing up Casbolt's statement on that?
I've been there. I was in the Kootenays for actually setting up with the Siniak nations and stuff in there and getting food, security and stuff like that. So I basically was about 2-3 years already in Silverton and New Denver. So again, Tulin to Dan, New Denver, there's huge connections, what's going on. These are also the highest points, by the way. So if you went from Vancouver to Halifax or even Seattle to New York, I don't really recognize borders, but these are some of the highest 2 points or 3 points. So in a pole shift or ice age, Cypress Hills, where we're setting up here just below me, is the highest point of safety. So some of the Zetas are going to, let's say, their areas, they might be around Vernon. this is kind of where we'll be setting up for ours, because it is high. It's up 4,400 feet. Now, when these particular, if you want to say underground military bases are going, Suffield to also Nelson connects just below into, as people think, Montana, but connects directly into the Denver base. And Patty and I were actually able to go up there, go below, and actually find what we are pretty sure is where they're holding the Queen's new residence. When I sent some documents to her, basically, Lucas and myself, I had him actually walk into the inner city of London and talk to the Postmaster General with these documents as well. And a couple days later, apparently, we were able to see liftoffs, and apparently that's when Elizabeth was actually taken to the Denver airport. So it looks like just outside the flight.
When you say you saw liftoffs, it's liftoffs of what?
Actually, airplanes coming. It looked like there was actually an entourage coming over here. Patty was able to get into the instrumentation. Remember, when the people see things being even on a reel, you know, what they assume to be they're watching live taping is usually what we've been able to determine might be 2-3 years out of date, that the Vatican, i.e. the NASA, is looping the tapes. So Patty can take us directly up in real time and look very different than what the satellite or what Google Earth or that kind of thing would be. So what the public is seeing and what I see and she sees are two different movies going on at the same time. So we could
Are they looping the Matrix? Are they looping the Matrix?
Yes.
Because I've noticed that the Matrix has got fewer people in it.
Yeah.
In any one sector, they don't seem to have enough processing power. There are fewer and fewer people in any one zone.
Yeah, and what we've been able to see through that is it looks like there's been a couple setups with some other deep underground military bases on my area, and I'm very concerned about this because what happened is we had two twin lakes up here, and again, I discovered all the water that feeds basically the North American continent here is off my land. So what's happened is that they've come in since 1952. Again,
it's 1 o'clock.
When Elizabeth came in and basically usurped or was illegitimately put on a de facto throne. We all know about the Lofal and the coronation of de jure clan mothers. So what happens is that they've been basically systematically destroying it. They've been piping the water probably to the deep underground military bases. I've talked with people that were actually on some of these projects, and they were told the water was being piped to the United States and to basically, you know, usurp and destroy with the fracking and, you know, not only starve out the people.
Yeah, the whole point is the fracking. The fracking is an active thing. This is Maria Wheatley been talking about this. The true, the energetic water, deep.
I've met with a lot of my friends now that are now disclosing to me what's going on with the fracking out here. And unfortunately, I was going to say Medicine Hat is called the gas city. So you can imagine, I'm just like, I might be on a cloud. I might be floating on one, but I might be there eventually too. But what happens is that this fracking in the oil, again, they're very redneck in the area. There's a lot of actually destruction through the Monsanto here into the groundwaters. Very few springs left, which is why I spent 3 years in the mountains in the Kootenays at Roseberry getting fresh spring water every day. So I still go to my spring on here at Cypress Hills because I only drink spring water. It's living, and there's a whole bunch of things as a quantum natural health practitioner. You know, what I do is that's my thing is to get people healthy and uplifted, you know, from oils to whatever I might be doing, massage, and I'm a colon hydrotherapist as well. I have about 80 modalities. So I'm a remote viewer, empath, medical intuitive, almost everything. Every kind of matrix, touchy-feely thing you can think. I marinate everyone with essential oils back here on amethyst beds. But when I go to get my water up there, Miles, you know, that's why I was talking to Randy Kramer and talking to people like, you know, I want to talk with people, let's say, in the solar wardens, the people like Corey Good. I wish to talk with the people behind this and the ETs and these illegal contracts that were made because they're not covenants. They were not authorized with anyone with any authority, which would be myself. And that's where Patty comes in with the DNA and all the history and the migrations and everything back to a galaxy far, far away. We can actually document and all the data is there. So Patty Broussard was actually the Broussards, with her great-grandmother being a Micmac Indian, was the clan mother for the Micmacs for the entire East Coast. So Patty is now getting all the people and all the oath keepers to start standing on their oaths to protect the law of the land, which would be the original tribal women, and restore the original governments with wise women and wise men, a balanced council back again. So that's actually how it was done when the clan mothers appointed their dragoons and reset up the dragoon courts as well. So this is a huge thing that we're looking at resetting, and it is like a divine alchemical marriage. And so a lot of what I'll be doing with Dr. Minervino will be coming through, and we'll be on tour or on journey, I guess, really, but on tour with the Body, Soul, Spirit Expo. And so we'll be going Saskatoon, beginning of October, then into Regina, then into Calgary. We'll be doing Medicine Hat, and then Vancouver and Vancouver Island through basically all of October. So to meet with people and help them. And he's also a remote healer, and he does DNA activation as I do, and clearings and stuff like that. So he's amazing, because this is what we said, is that there's supposed to be a graduation time, and very few people are there. We've got to help with the ascension, as he talks about the raising of humanity and the awareness of humanity. When people start talking about humans and stuff, when I talked about earlier, I was of what they call the noble savage or wild. So we're uncolonized, uncivilized, and we're technically indigo, which means those without God. And God is an old word, an old English word that was put in 451, which means that evil or chaos take its course. So in the original languages, it was actually about being creators of the Great Spirit, technically. So a lot of this goes back. We can see how things have changed. And so we wish to go back and start restoring this, because the people in the private sector being reigned over by these sovereigns, monarchy, is what I did. So when I put in for my proclamation, which is up on my Karen Ann Macdonald on Facebook, you're going to see all the proclamations. They are done outside in full solar rays or light, as people think, and everything is open, nothing's hitting. The canopy is actually our trees. It's very back to the
Wonderful
original
trees.
It's about doing natural law. And this supersedes what people concede to be common law, or admiralty law in those lower things. So basically what I did was dissolve a dissolution of the throne and their titles and the trust funds. So I have been dealing with people, that are supposedly these masters and everything else, and trying to get this out to the people, because what it allows them is to restore their original thing, almost like epigenetics. It doesn't matter what happened. We can all go back to our original state of perfection, per se, and take all the knowledge we've accumulated with us. In the lower, what they call a fourth class, is called actually an inhabitant. And a lot of people know.
Could you drop your camera back down to a little bit?
Yeah, we can. In the inhabitants and stuff, what happens is that they're basically, it's like a band of reserve. They're classified as prisoner of wars. And so this is where the women, if you go back to almost kind of like the Irish or the original laws, and you look at what was called Brehon laws, there were different classifications of what you called.
What are we going back to then? The top of 3,000 years?
Oh, even before. And this again stood back that there was actually 10 classifications of marrying. And so the women that are in commerce right now are technically classified as working prostitutes in law from the higher courts. So what it is we are supposed to be speaking freely. And I want to thank you, if I may thank you, and everyone listening right now too.
Yeah, is that fine? The women can't get to a higher level? Is there?
Yes.
Technically,
so,
the so-called glass ceiling.
That's exactly part of it. So, right. So if I can thank you so that we're able to, announce what we're doing here, but that what we wish to do is restore basically and get people so that we can speak freely and share freely. It was called the law of the gift. That was to be in peace and knowing what the peace were between not only us as women, but also as nations and as sentient beings. And what happens is that we are not intercoursing into commerce. And so when you start intercoursing into commerce, you're creating division and charges, and that violates the original laws of the land, which were what was set up by the clans. So I want to thank you for being here and for your, fairness, kindness, and your understanding. It's just amazing to be able to talk and have fun like this today and be excited.
This is absolute joy. This is fantastic. You're just keep on going. It's fantastic. This is music to my ears.
Do-do-do-do. We'll have to do the bear toting, the hey hey ho, Yahweh. We'll get the drums out later. Anyway,
I interviewed Clifford, is it Mahudi in
yes,
Phoenix,
yeah.
and he just got going, and he got annoyed with the president, but that's a fascinating wisdom. I love all that.
It's an amazing, and it's all our original tribal, it's all our peoples. And people just have to find there's nothing to join, there's nothing to do, there's no paper to file. You just have to find out really who you are. It's like an inheritance law. And so what happened is I was, learning all this silly straw man stuff and private stuff, and people thinking they wanted to get, tax write-offs and stuff, and UCC ones or PPSAs or whatever Saskatoon silly trust funds they were doing at the time. That was because the women were trysting or intercoursing with men, also intercoursing with some of the different alien races here, and contracting and not knowing what they were doing. So they
How were they doing that? Sorry, how were they
through intercourse, and so very much as well what happened
with ETs? In what
Yep.
way?
I wasn't there as a direct witness, but if a woman was to start intercoursing or arbitrarily gave up her land rights, this is also how they ended up in the draconian and reptilian, that sort of thing, in those queens' hands. Because the women were not able to hold their lands or their territories or their flesh. And so they've been actually literally infiltrated. And this is what a lot of the Candida yeast viruses, the tagging would be the RDIF, the chipping, you're now property thereof, because they would send their soldiers and their Dachshund soldiers and Syrian stuff and all sorts of things was going on at this higher level that a lot of people weren't aware of. There's a great thing people can look at. It's called Tribal Laws by Meredith Quinn on YouTube. And this gives us the basis to some of the inner things. And we've got, I think there's 9 different things when they interviewed him. He was the legal law advisor to the United Nations for the whole Dakota Empire. And so when you know Dakota and Lakota, but those translate to Pulgarian or Palladian, just like Ojibwe actually means Palladian, Pulgarian. So a lot of people, if you listen to the Dene or you listen to their original languages, it sounds very much like, as people think, Hebrew or Nibiru, or all this stuff is now tying in. So all the previous pole shifts, and there's been way more than 5, by the way, we were able to go out to Reeser Lake, where this is why I'm so concerned, because they're stealing all my water. This is why it's an international act of war and act of treason and high treason. So this is why I approached people to help assist me. And if we have to set up a tribal force, because I've been on my land and I've had some of their conservation officers threaten me.
I mean, in what way do you going to enforce this?
Well, this is where we got to set up. I mean, we know what the law is. Now it's an education process of educating the peacekeepers. But now I'm talking with, and I wish to have that disclosure and that contact and those meetings and discussions with the extraterrestrials, because this is what's affecting here. Now, most of them, what I've been told, have left. But when I'm with Patty Broussard, I literally can see through the satellites and the space stations what's going on up there. So there's still fighting going on. And this is what is got to be addressed.
Is this something people can see or witness?
Yeah, I was able to. I'm a direct witness to that. I've been able to see the gates, and I just sent some stuff to Nassim Harriman. Unfortunately, I missed him on the Modern Tour thing with David Whitehead and Marty Leeds and Patty Greer this week. But anyway, c'est la vie. At least I got to be with Paul Hellyer and Stephen Bassett and Grant Cameron and all the guys. Victor was up here, and it was a great tour. They had here a couple months ago. So we were able to talk about this really openly and freely. But yeah, there are ETs that we're going to have to set up our own tribal force here, because when I go onto my land here, even as a woman, no one tells me to get off my land. But they threatened it. I'd been there for I think 14 days. And if they figured I had 48 hours and they were going to come arrest me. And they're all sitting with flak jackets and huge things. This is paramilitary up there. And so, they wanted to know if I would understand them. I said, absolutely no. I said, I'm not submitting to you or any other man, and this is my land. And tribally and by inheritance, this is mine. So I'll take further steps. So, what we'll do, when
I mean, this is important. I mean, I was at the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. Have you heard of
Right.
that by Sasha Stone?
I've heard a little bit of, yeah, Sasha's.
It's a similar sort of thing, but I mean, the thing is, how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to make it happen?
Well, this is what we do. One is the education too, is that we've got to bring forth the disclosure and we've got to have open relations that are benevolent with some of these other, and there's our extraterrestrial beings here, and some of them are quite friendly that I've dealt with. And there's some that have volunteered to stay back to actually assist with some of this on this project to do that. And again, this is where we have to, Patty would be one of the best interviews, better than Snowden, that you've ever seen. I've put forth some of the information, just a hint of what you can see from the Human Genome Project to how we're going to repair this to what has been happening in the land. This is one of the last vestiges of land that we have. And it's one of the only things that's been high enough to survive any kind of cataclysm. So every other pole shift, we can see there's been 10 different striations in the land miles. And so you can see where this place was, they just wiped out the planet. And anyone that questions that, I was with Patty back when Ician was coming in, and we thought it was going to come here, and it actually went back to Mars and blew it up and gave it a coma. So I actually watched that, and she's got the
Now, when you
photography
say watch that, what do you mean?
camera.
Right.
We watched on the satellite captures and the photos and stuff. And then it went back and it actually froze. So you could actually see over a period of 11 days how it actually changed total colors, because you could see something was happening. It looked like it was given a coma. And so Patty's got a whole thing just on the Ician and Mars that happened back in 2013. And Patty was attempting to come here and was actually ambushed, hijacked, and they took everything, including a lot of the computer data.
No, sorry. Explain that. Exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was amazing because it was like, in fact, I think, on JP. Yeah, I was. It was October 31st, actually. I was on JP's radio show at Ever Beyond at Wolf Spirit that day. We do know where we were. Anyway, it was around that time period. I was in Saskatoon with my children and stuff. And what had happened is that we assumed every Ician was up there and it was going to come, and we figured it was going to come into here. And so people were making ridiculous things. It's like trying to deliver a child. You shouldn't give dates at all. But because these are really planetoids and stuff with, crew and stuff, it actually went back. So I actually watched the photography of it. So anyone that wishes to see it, there's a whole little film on it that Patty's got on Patty Broussard albums. Just look at the thing. We've got one on warp drives. We've got on different things like deep underground military bases, and a lot of things that happen. For example, Patty's told me about different situations when Obama wanted to actually, there were some nuclear missiles that were detonated that Obama wanted to actually put into the civilian or the general population, and that some of the military would refuse to do it. And so what they did is things were moved and detonated outside the populace. And so that's where we saw the firing. And I did see the firing that week, so I knew she was in communications with different people. And what would happen is then there was 4, then 11, then there was 200 of the top military brass. So a lot of them have been making disclosures, and they've been coming together. And they do. They want to, make sure that the women of the clan and the men are protected again. And this is not only for us, but it's for our children and our posterity and for those to come. And it's incumbent upon me to stand and, hold this as well, which is why I'm here, and making some of these. But how we're going to enforce it, that is where we're going to require some assistance. We need people that are self-sustainable. Myself, when I do things, this is about looking at a new way of doing things. We've got chemtrails up in here, just from Washington alone, the area. We've been in a haze here for 4 days. I've seen the spheres out here. I've seen those columns and pillars of lights. Very bizarre stuff is playing with the,
Now, those columns of light, some of those on the internet, in the fog of disinformation, are clearly, they've added it on. But when you say they're real, where are they coming from and going to? What are they?
Where are they coming from? It was just there, Miles. We were actually, myself and Michael Unger, who again is being my host here. Because remember, I don't commerce at all. I don't use money, and I don't charge people either. I don't have any accounts. So when I'm into areas coming in, people like have guest houses for me. So I'm being put up by Michael Unger, and I was with Peter Collins, who actually works at CFB, Softfield in the kitchen, and clean thing. And so we got to deal with that. 'Cause they wanted to charge him like $900 for me using the, MiFi. Not going to happen. They're going to have to provide all their communications for free here, especially. And there's a covenant treaty for that. But anyway, we were coming back. We'd just done a ceremony over the area, and I was getting them familiar with the area of what we wanted to do at Reeser Lake. And we were coming back from Reeser Lake to Medicine Hat, and there's this huge column, and I was like, oh my gosh, and you can see this wavy kind of 2 chemtrails on either side. And so it's on my Facebook, and we actually, all 3 of us went in the truck, oh my gosh, this is like real. And so we could see the column coming up, and then all of a sudden, different chemtrails being hazed on it. So we have it up, and Michael got out. He's got his little like GoPro little film thing. So he took a picture of it. So we have it. And I took a picture, did the capture off of it that he gave to me, and I put it up on Facebook, but I also gave it to, there's a guy called Medicine Hat, Alberta or whatever. He puts a lot of the interesting, we'll just say, geo-terraforming information up with me. And so this is about knowing how to transmute it, but absolutely we've been seeing that. We've been able to see the different spheres, or what we see, like, as people think, from Nibiru to Nemesis to Planet X to her Columbus, call it whatever we wish, different planets. That's why I love looking at, Wild Vasim stuff and all these different people, but it's about people getting healthy right now. So that's what I've been dealing with myself as a quantum practitioner, David Wolf, getting people on like raw cacao and chocolate, lots of essential oils. We got them all on Himalayan salt water here, because this releases
that stuff.
It's amazing. So people
and the chocolate.
Oh my gosh! Wait till you come here, and you get to have the best raw cacao there is on this planet. I put about 80 things in there. So we do a whole bunch of fun things. We put the essential oils like frankincense there, and rose and orange and raw cacao essential oil. And what we're doing, we put this with our real spring water. So once you do that, it actually releases 94 minerals called ormus, or monatomics. So your monatomic gold and silver and all the rare noble platinum things will help vibrate you higher, assist with the ascension, and protect you against the gamma and the radiation. We wish to be radiating, kind of like the Anadians, I'm a Solarian as well.
Yeah, the radiation is sort of an intelligent energy, so I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, in Chernobyl, all the animals are getting on just fine.
You know what? And those are some of my gene pools. So it's funny when you look at the Aradia couple, if people want to go on Facebook, that was interviewed by Stuart Swedlow, you'll see that they drink uranium-232. And what are we doing, like David Wolf and all of us that are wild food, and again, superfoods. We're looking at that shaga mushroom because it brings up all the ormus, all the trees, all your druid trees is the DNA tree of life. So if you use frankincense, Palo Santo, birch, cedarwood. So like in my background, the ringing cedars of Russia.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
But what type of trees are you talking about again? What group was that?
All the trees. So tree oils are frankincense. They're wood trees. Frankincense, myrrh, birch, pineal would be pine, to reactivate that. So that's why they used them scripturally. That's why there's about 200 even references, even in the Bibles, people still know about it. But that's why we were using it for anointings, and I still use it back to the Egyptian on the Temple of Isis. That's where Dr. Gary Young from Young Living Oils was able to decode all the original formulas of Exodus. So it would be, I still use, you've got cannabis oil, you've got shekels of this and shekels of that. I just do drops of essential oils. So any of the trees will actually start protecting people. And make it very clear, when Patty got in, we got into some of the stuff just around Detroit, Toronto, that whole Mid-East coast area and Midwest there. The gamma rays were going, get this, up to 9,000. And I haven't looked at it for months. So not a couple hundred anymore, or 400. It was in some cases up to 9,000. So you can imagine with the Fukushima combined with the nuclear meltdowns that are all happening, even on the West Coast, what I'd really like people to do, if they look at Patty El-Broussard, you're going to see a huge lava mass that apparently was missed by the military. And the whole West Coast is sitting on this incredible lava field. So it's not just actually under Yellowstone, it's the whole West Coast. that comes up just under even to Vancouver. So now I can see where Skaglin's maps and everything is, the Navy maps are going to start what's been happening. And the cauldrons are moving, the Three Sisters are moving, entire lakes are being drained. You know, we don't appreciate, you know, seeing my lakes being drained this way through the pipes. But I mean, the water, it's really what I met with someone called Rob Nicholson.
Sorry,
And
what sort of rate of movement are we talking about here?
Well, entire lakes have been drained that we can see. Patty and I were looking at in the calderas and stuff, or fissures that have just absolutely split mountains apart. I mean, this is amazing. We can see actually fissures splitting in the Atlantic Ocean. And we were able to see some different Stargate areas as well. The amount of information that we have amassed for you guys is massive for disclosure coming out. And so we're going to almost have to take a whole little series of, you know, what was the beginnings here that, you know, you will see in the hieroglyphics and stuff, but why we're doing this, kind of like a little different than Tellinger stuff, but also going into then why we had clan mothers. What tribe are you from? Where can we help you? Everything's in divine order, as you say. You know, it's all like going to be the best exciting times for us. You know, a lot of people are concerned about the pole shift and September the 23rd and the Shemta and the Jubilees and, you know, a lot of forgiveness, and that's what it's about. And it's about a day of atoning, which if we've done what we're supposed to be, woo, we got the parties here, let me tell you. I said, it's kind of like I was teasing Dr. Minervino, Tony. I said, oh, Anthony, I'm atoning that day. He's here. I'm planning the party. You know, we create our own reality. When you learn how you can create this and co-create it, we're going to have the best time. So somewhere on the 23rd, we want to make sure that we have all our friends with us and that our Skype lines are open. So somewhere we'll have you. You can like see the backyard here at Michael's. So we'll be having a garden party. We're all the gardeners. And so, you know, I've been teaching the women here, Miles, we can't, because of these situations in the chemtrails. That's like people taking pharmaceuticals. When I come into people's homes and they're using genetically modified foods, I find most people can't read a label. It's terrible. Adults can't read labels. I have more faith in the children right now than I do in some adults and humans.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, exactly. The children know.
you know, the children know, and frequency-wise. But I come in, and it's not even superfoods. And when David Wolf talks about superfoods, we're talking about deep-rooted roots that go down like Avatar. It's the neural network. It picks up all the extra nutrients. So we're vibrating like and wild. We're just excited. And so we live that way. Our cells are that way. We don't have any blocks and diseases for the most part. When people then drop down into that, it's the same thing, like 4 classes of people, 4 classes of utility chicken, 4 classes of women, their DNA. That's how they're moved as stock on the, you know, stock market. Same thing. IMF, the Cynthia Brewer, the barcodes, the bear codes. We know all that. And so what happens is that if you've got all that food in you and you're genetically modified and going to the stores and you're using number 4 and number 7 or conventional, well, then you're deemed property of them. Kind of like Monsanto when they were all doing those, you know, who was what. And so we need to be cleaning and detoxifying and purifying ourselves out. And so this is why it comes back to findaspring.com, get some spring water, get the essential oils. That's the highest form of, you know, food. I have all my people, because they're all acidic. So what I do is I start teaching people, you know, litmus paper. All my clients get litmus paper. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a little piece of tape that you get out at the health store, right? And you put it on your saliva and tongue first thing in the morning and find out how you rate. And that is actually where you are in the chakras, by the way, almost. So very, very acid up here. And we're supposed to be almost at indigo, kind of getting into the gamma, because we're not 7.53 or 8.3 anymore. We all know what's just shifted with CERN. And so I have
We can talk about CERN. Simon Parkes has been doing some stuff on that.
I love some of Simon's stuff. And you know what? That's why I'm not concerned, because I have the gift of discernment. And you know, you're able to use this and transmute this. But for most people, they don't have this kind. They don't know how to play with alchemy or fire walk or be with the people like, you know, I've been with alchemists. I know what it's like to see the monatomic thing and be with the Don Carters and, you know, kind of like the David Hudsons, David Wolfs of the place. But the grounds are all bound up with the chemtrails. So it doesn't matter even if you plant heritage heirloom or even organic's a lower classification. Organic is like a dirty world, but then so is genetically modified and inhabitant stuff here too. You know, it's frankenfoods, right? Petricide, the medical pharmaceutical complex, right? So what we want to do is get people going back, and I have everyone to Bulk Barn here, at least getting, you know, raw vegan food and raw cacao shakes, NutriBullet style. But just to shift this pH alone, just to be right on, all you need is aluminum-free baking soda, 1 teaspoon, glass of water, and a teaspoon of molasses or, you know, maple syrup organic or raw agave or something. And that's all you need a couple times a day. And that'll shift that pH. So this will dissolve your old thought process being in the, you know, constellation of Cancer and bring you around to the 13th again. I don't know, round full circle again. But that dissolves actually tumors.
So is that sending you alkaline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes us alkaline, but it also is a temporary measure. So do the monatomics through the salts, and so do the essential oils help do that. So I have everyone on capsules of doing that. And I mean, some of us have gourmet salts. Mine's from Hawaii. This is Hawaiian salt. And so this actually is from the volcanic ash, kind of like bentonite clay or zeolite, but that's like activated charcoal. That's what we used as nurses to have people bind if they had a chemical overdose. And chemtrails are a drug overdose, so is prescriptions.
So that will suck the stuff up. But it won't suck the good minerals up, is that right? Or what?
Absolutely, it just accentuates because there's minerals already in here. So what it does is it just neutralizes everything. So do essential oils. They neutralize the radiation and they neutralize the chemicalization, you know, that shouldn't be in us that have accumulated the issues in the tissue. So that's where we come in with our scanners. We scan everything right through you.
Now, what sort of scanning, what sort of frequencies, how can people do that, or can they?
We've got the scale biofeedback. So I actually do mine as a remote viewer. So I do people like, you know, for example, right now, I could be tapped into you over there. And I am watching everything going on real time. So I can look at your Curlian photography, your blood work.
I've got my Royal Rice machine. I go on that sometimes.
I love those. Yeah, I got the frequency. So we can plug them in, but we actually have a data of about 11,000 things. So if it's even chemtrail, we can neutralize it. If you've taken too much coffee or something, then we start, you know, educating people. And of course, everything comes down to the basis. And so as a colon hydrotherapist, you'll love it. The deep underground military base is really your colon. And so what we want to do is flood the entire planet in the Gaia Earth with an enema. So we really want to just give it a big colon hydrotherapy enema irrigation, which is kind of what we plan to do. But a lot of people, it's that simple. It doesn't matter when you got 33 feet, all the 33 points or nodes are in the colon that uptake. So if I want to look youthful and I don't want to have wrinkles, it is the hydration and the salts and the grounding. Thank you. Off the colon hydrotherapy. So if people want to really get healthy, they'll be into the colonic machines. The women and the men don't want to be aging, then they're going to be in for colon hydrotherapy or NS. But this is just a pH chart, just to show you here. This is what most people don't know is all of the pH. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing, Miles, is like I said, we just use the tape here.
So you want to head past 8 to a 9, is that right?
Yeah, a lot of people are using the foods that are in the 9 or 10s, you know, in there, because what you want to do is because the people have done so much damage, all the bottled water, the reverse osmosis, all those things are down in here. All the city waters, everything else, all your black sentient goo and everything through the waters is all down in here. It brings you down. And
so the bottled water's got benzene and stuff in it. A lot of people in this bottled water.
Yeah, and that's why it's embedding into the tissues, into your root chakra. It's dropping you into the basis. And so we really want to get people back here to a state of, you know, being excited.
So really, tap water is the better thing, really, for starting, rather than use bottled waters.
I'm actually a big one of Find a Springs. Almost anywhere, if you go to findaspring.com, bless David Wolfsoul and Daniel Vitalis, they set up something called findaspring.com. Most people have reported in where there's a spring within an hour of you. So I really start with that. The city waters are played with, and even, you know, people that use different filtration systems, could be from Brita to $5,000 ionization machines. You'll never remove the imprint properly, never. There are pictures
Yeah,
and stuff.
this is something which the so-called elite or the very rich think that the water can get.
Oh,
That it can happen to everybody else, but their machine will save it. But
oh
it doesn't
yeah,
work
well,
out that way, does it?
no, it doesn't, and you'll never, be able to actually mimic the original. That's the mother's milk. So if you look here at what we call Battle Creek, it
Yeah.
actually says
Sorry, you're talking about the triple spiral energetic water
yeah,
from the
yeah,
spring.
yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
like Victor Schauberger's, yeah. When you talk about the vortexing and you start looking at water technology, what it does is it's a vortex water. It has energy or life of its own. It vibrates, and so most of them, because they're cooled and because they've got the original minerals, they're coming up through levitation. So anyone that really wants to learn, David Wolf did a brilliant thing called Spring Waters Rocky Mountains. Get educated, because this is where it's at. The water is the divine feminine. And those of us that do, let's say, urine therapy, for example, when you have a child, I know, we'll bring it all. You'll really get to know me today. Urine therapy is an old,
Good for your hair, yeah.
wonderful. But what it does, urine therapy, that if you think about a baby in the cosmic womb, what we call the amniotic fluid, that is basically urine. Okay, and it's salt water cosmically. It's like the ocean, the primordial maritime law in there is where they are, or the Marian bloodlines that we have too. What happens is that urine therapy is actually a byproduct of the blood, almost like plasma. What it does is it's part of your blood lineage, and it extracts through everything else, through the organs, let's say through the kidneys and stuff, and different filtration systems we have, like liver, whatever. But by the time it becomes urine, it is actually all the remedies that you require. So it's a vaccine replacement, all sorts of things. And most of your high-tech, centers, and a lot of people are familiar with Hippocrates, Optimal Health out here, different things where I patterned my center off of in Saskatoon. Now I'm a mobile polar bus center. I have everything in here. But what happens is that they actually feed you back a lot of times, you may be unaware, but your own urine mixed in with your carrot juice for the morning. And the urine is actually phenomenal. It's the fecal matter, which is like an old computer. It's old physical, mental, emotional. It's stuff that your system doesn't use anymore or process. When it's stuck in there, and you could have that steak from or Chef Boyardee or whatever it was from, or a piece of gum from how many years ago. I've seen a lot of things come out in my colon hydrotherapy machines because they're professional machines that we run for an hour. And like one little enema bag, which is great. I have all my clients on enema bags right now. Just even a cup or two. You'll never notice it's in you, but that's enough to change your acidity to your alkalinity, or depression to happiness, or disease to flow within days. So
Yeah,
people can,
I'd simply take all my best coffee and use it for colon therapy.
yeah, a lot of people do, but coffee actually, its original intent is actually green. It's not roasted and dark. And so as a raw foodist, what we do is we leave all our herbs in there for at least 24 hours with the spring water, and it will extract out different things. But people have used coffee because it puts you into such shock that basically there's a palmitate in there that starts actually the peristalsis, like the wave-like movement, to get everything out of your system because it's a toxin. They have come out with alkaline coffee. So I know like David Wolf now, they're getting alkaline coffee. But again, if you have something that's alkaline and you put it with acidic water, well, you've just canceled out what you're doing. So just by drinking coffee, it knocks out your immune system for probably about 3 days and drops you into that 55 hertz here. So just to get your mind free, or if we want to get to 432 hertz, oils are actually DNA repair because they're hertz, they're vibratory. So you can combine essential oils and get up into the mind for peace and calming and open that up at, let's say, 105 hertz. Or I might use rose oil at 320 hertz and take you out of here. But when you consider most people are in their homes being bombarded with satellites and EMF and smart meters and everything else, and the, wiring and all that at 60 hertz, most people are barely functional. And they can be mind controlled and dumbed down that way.
And of course, in Europe, it's 50 hertz, which drops the things lower.
Even more. Yeah. So this is a way with essential oils to vibrate you back up through the roof, so to speak, and open all those things up. So We do actually have code books Dr. Carolyn Mean has put together, and it's called Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils. And you can get that at lifesciencepublishers.com, or people can look it up on Amazon. And all my books are available.
Can you send me all those links or get to the spelling right?
Not that I spell, but I'll print it and type it out for you if
Yeah.
that's okay. Sure. But yeah, those links, that's why I mentioned this, because over the years, I've got 30 years of medical experience, and my clinic was like, the free all. People could come in and just heal. We had all this sort of thing. I had Len Horowitz's stuff. I know what the problems are. We need to be solution oriented. So I'm teaching the women indoor gardening through tower gardening, indoor verticals, or sprouting, because we can do this very easily. And I do this on the road. I've got a little bullet and a Vitamix, and I brought my dehydrator, and there's no excuse not to be doing this. I compost on the road. I have zero garbage. And so even the clothing I'm wearing, this is all hemp clothing. This is all hemp stuff. When I'm covered here with my headscarf, it's a natural fabric, either cotton, bamboo, or hemp or something. And I really prefer cannabis as opposed to...
That's pre-linen, isn't it? Linen is a similar thing, is it?
This is actually cannabis clothing. I'm going to go back to the original words, but as people think hemp, it's actually cannabis clothing. So this is where we have the advantage of having that. And so this protects against the radiation. So all these...
What property of that cloth or the plant actually gives you that protection?
A lot of the deep root, because they're pulling up the ormus, they're creating their own electrical field, and they're such a high alkalinity plant. That's why you see a lot of people when they want to do Phoenix tears. And I've had lots of clients, like rather than getting rid of the mercury fillings or the vaccines the children have had, they all want to, put the cannabis. It's a really high alkalization, like taking a lot of wheatgrass too. So that's why a lot of people are having great results with it, whether they say with cancer or with epilepsy or children with attention deficit and brain tumors and stuff. But quite frankly, if we could get them on some more higher vibratory stuff, they'd fix even better and deal with the causes. So it's the properties again in here of really the alkalization, the mineralization. It's vibratory. So if you have synthetics, it's like polyester inside goes inside. Like I said, a lot of people, they need to clean out what's in their kitchens, because that's what's doing it. It's what we put through the pearly gates here. And so when I do iridology, or I'm looking into your beautiful eyes today, Miles, we're doing face readings, right? So I was taught Shote and stuff like that. So like what you would know is iridology, and we can read the nose and the teeth and all the teeth meridians and how your organs are doing just by the way you smile.
God help us.
Yeah. And that sort of thing. So there's all this reflexology, or we call VitaFlex, about 9,000 points. So my machines back here actually scan. So it's kind of fun. I can make my own remedies, and I thought it was actually kind of fun because maybe I could just do this for a second. Guess we'll do it more than a sec. Sorry about that. Be in technology some days. No, what I was just looking at here, I was just going to actually move my computer around just to show you your aura. And I will move this so I don't disrupt that again. Because a lot of people have never seen that. And, it is just when I want to see, I want to know what Miles looks like. May I share it with the rest of the...
Yes, you can share it.
Okay.
God help them.
Okay. There's a curly photography scan of you.
Wow.
So I'm actually watching your gas visualization discharge right now. And so Miles is beautiful, isn't he? And so that's how I can remote.
So my gas visualization discharge.
Absolutely. And so, if I wanted to go through and started, look at different people, and we want to start looking at their acupuncture meridians and stuff, right? I can actually start looking at your acupuncture meridians from here too. Wow. I know, it's so cool. And so a lot of people...
That's one way of screen sharing on Skype, that's for sure.
It is, and actually I usually have a little eyeball thing, but I'm making do with Michael's thing today. Same thing too, it might be a sacred geometry, and I know you have a love for crop circles. We used to have so many crop circles just north of Saskatoon. We used to go out there with Galen Ray, and we...
Yeah, they're having a right in crop circle country here.
I know, it's lovely. It's so great. Here's like a crop circle photography, and Kirlian photography, or sacred geometry that's for you specifically right now.
Wow.
Okay, so
In
I'm
fact,
literally
Simon Miles, he gave a tremendous, very detailed look into the crop circle geometry, knowing that a lot of them are man-made. It's not how they're made; it's the fact they are made. It's
exactly,
very
and
important.
it's absolutely phenomenal. So you can actually go into anyone here, and we can start going. Like right now, you're fixing. You got to remember what you're doing is you're self-healing right now. So these are different colors or chakras that will go in, and you'll start showing me what you're doing, and it'll go through different organs that you're healing. So what you are is you're actually self-reading, self-correcting, self-sustainable, and you are your own doctor. So right now, this is stuff that you're actually showing that needs to be corrected, that you're correcting right now. And I, as a medical or health practitioner, there's about 40,000 of us worldwide, or I should say planetary, not worldwide, but it tells me where the blocks are. And so we can educate people as to where they're missing things.
Oh, what's the difference between worldwide and planetary?
I always think as world as in the war. There are some different things that were just coming up in there. So it shows me an inflammatory process. You're actually one of us. You'd be a great practitioner. There's the SKIO thing. That's how we kind of remote view people, you know. And so this is the technology that we're able to use. And that's what the SKIO device looks like. And so that's basically goes up to the satellite system. So I'm self-contained, self-empowered, and don't require any of the Illuminati hospitals or the hospitality of the hospitaliers or the knights or whatever. And there you go. So you're fixing your own thing. So right now I can assist the clients. They lie down and I can actually pick up, detect what it is there. You know, if there's any. Yeah, isn't it juicy? I was actually one of the
Turn on the
original
mic, Miles.
teachers out here. So people could get a hold of Ken Wilkinson at the Quantum Alliance or Gage Tarrant there. Like I said, Dr. Paul Duran's in Hawaii. And right now what we're doing is we're setting up universities. So we have universities of this caliber. So it is there for people to go online. So we have people like Nassim Harriman. Those are our professors.
Yeah, and that seemed fantastic. What's he doing now recently? Or
You know, I can tell you exactly where I missed him. He was in Calgary 2 days ago. He's en route between Calgary to Vancouver. And I believe, or I think tonight, I don't believe, actually tonight, I think they're supposed to be in Calgary. So if you look up the Modern Knowledge Tour, courtesy of my favorite guys, which is Chris Russick and David Whiteheads, who's been a guest on my show. But yeah, I'd love to connect with some of this. It's an amazing process. So that's where he is actually, I think, tonight. They've been out camping in Banff. And the only thing that was really strange is that I was going to go, and it was so gorgeous here, and they had the biggest snowfall 3 hours away. They were in hail and snow, 6 inches of snow in Calgary. So we didn't go on Saturday. So
was
things
that
happen.
an arranged storm or what?
I would say it's all been arranged here. So I've got a lot of great friends too that are, you know, inside. So we've got a lot of inside information, which I like to disseminate freely because it's all about people having freedom of speech and stuff like that and bringing things forth. This kind of information, you know, if you look at the stuff that Patty and I've put together, has the potential to save millions of lives. And that's really what we're here for, is to do it all benevolently for everyone. So that's the way it should be. And, you know,
Fantastic.
You know, people just, you know, they don't get it. Like, you know, I don't commerce, I don't intercourse into commerce. And it's like, it would be funny, but, you know, what's required? How much do you require? I've been out of a couple suitcases if I have to on the road. But when I came in, let's say to Calgary out of Silverton one day, just as an overnighter, because I'd been with David Sarita, marvelous man. I love hanging out with David and Crystal and Dan Nelson out there at Nelson.
Yeah, how's he doing?
He's doing awesome, actually. Actually, I did some interesting things with biofeedback. The next thing he said, he was up to the Palladium mothership, and next thing he was getting vortex formulas in free energy and Stargate stuff. So I gotta connect him and Dan Willis and Patty together yet. And Tony, Dr. Minervino. So Tony and I will be going, and we're going to meet up with Larry Levan. He's in Silverton. Great helper of mine. He's been wonderful. That's what's got me through a lot of this. Is Larry's been really great helping out, backing out a lot of stuff too. And he runs the internet services at Red Mountain through Silverton. So he's been very, very supportive in that sense that he's doing books and stuff to do that have to do with the Magdalene line and the DNA and all that sort of interesting stuff back to Shakespeare and Sir Francis
Yes. Well,
Bacon.
yeah.
Yes.
Simon Miles is having. I'm doing a bit of work on that level.
Well, right now I'm actually just to let you know, doing a little helping and assisting here. There's things we're uncovering called like the House of the DNA and different things what they've been doing with the strands.
And where is that? Is that in? Is
That are some of the things that they were over on some trips that we're just looking at somewhere close. I think possibly by the Hague. We're just tracking some things down and doing a lot of decoding and stuff that's been with the Eckankar masters and stuff and Da Vinci stuff. So I'm actually doing my version of decoding stuff like the Last Supper and what the masters.
This is a whole range of information, a whole range of names that are just music to my ears.
This is actually where we're able to show where they switched over from the actual how they usurped and they stole all our castles and lands and stuff. And it actually was a bear clan, and then they switched it over to.
Now explain that coat of arms if you can, because is that relating to the current coat of arms of
Yes.
the royal family? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and how they've actually chained down. By the way, they're women too. By the way, like I said, a lot of these people too, when they're pointing fingers at Elizabeth and everyone else in this monarchy, which goes back to the Vikings and the Six Kings and how they set this up and back to Atlantis and stuff. People haven't done enough of their checks here, and it really came back from usurping the women in there. But again, like I said,
There was clearly a massive force went across the the world,
Yes.
to take out the wise women and the shamans and put us under some dreadful rule.
Yeah, absolutely in here. But this is where we're bringing everything out here. And these were actually all the different paintings that are now being, I'm actually able to decode those, like through the Last Supper and stuff, and what Da Vinci was doing, because they were part of the Priory of Zion and they were part of the Eckankar and different masters. And so this has to go with what was being, I'm just actually revealing it right now and decoding right now. I have a great love for doing that sort of thing. So between that and essential oils and raw food recipes and raw chocolates. But that's some of the things we wanted to share with different people. But those are the different shields. So basically, if you go back and let's say if you go to Kieran and Macdonald, you'll actually see my coat of arms and all that sort of thing.
Max Spear's saying the coats of arms refer to different ET races. I mean, we're all ET, but can you explain just briefly what that means? What's the context?
Yeah, actually, and Patty's got a whole thing. So we're going to go through the whole DNA, coat of arms, look up Harold. So, for example, if I said, Miles, what was your mother's maiden?
Grayson.
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 Yeah. So we would go back to Gray or Gra or whatever, and son thereof or whatever. And a lot of things.
That's Gray with an A.
Yeah. And so what we had is when they had the men came away or were usurped or coerced or conscripted into the armies and stuff or militaries, what happened is that rather than being, a noble savage again or whatever, nobility, what they did is when they got them in, then they lost the information who their clans or their mothers were of these, particularly nations, 13 nations. And what happened is then they became in the country or the son of or the daughter of. So they lost.
Yeah, that's very important. A lot of the names are son of Johnston, O'Shawn, of O'Hara, it's that's a relatively modern thing.
And so through the coat of arms, what you can do, we've been able to track. Let's say for my example, on my mother's side, Lusic, Lutsic. There was a castle, Lusic. We found that the Germains or Saint Germains came and stole, that they have no, and this is really what ISIS and those guys should be doing. They should be going back to our original tribes with their original clan mothers, all the military and armies of the forces, and they should be back to their home, basically to their motherlands, setting them up again, and protecting the mothers in the motherlands.
When you say ISIS, who are you referring to?
ISIS is the original, it's one of the original nations treaties, so all the Anglos followed something called the Eye of Isis Covenant or Treaty, or Camel's Eye, or Noah's Ark. So we would know where to go or who to be with or whatever. So we're really just coming back to who we are and finding out who we are. through the DNA in the coat of arms. So Lucet, for example, the closest thing, if you can't find it, might be luck, lucky, luck of the iron, you know? But there is actually a Lucet one, right? So I looked it up and
But
said,
Jesus.
there's a Lucet in Ukraine or something. So, you just start looking up things, or Rash or Rusha, meant the Vedics, the shaman, shamanic. So when they came out through the Bering Strait, you can see this whole lineage here, right to Cypress Hills. It was like their little route, their journey, their migration. And so they brought actually all the women here. That's why it's called Medicine Hat, the bonnet or the shaman, or they got their feathers back, and the dragons got their, whatever, crown back. This would be the original Templar crown lands, if you know where those sine waves are.
Okay, what sort of era are we talking about? 1,000 years BC?
Oh, tens of thousands.
Oh, and we're talking pre-catastrophe or after it?
Yeah, pre-deluge. Yeah, absolutely. And you can go back even further. So when Patty and I are going back, we're going like, the Dracos just showed up at Anunnaki 30,000 years ago, but we can go back to the tribes that were here 200-some thousand years ago. So you can go through almost those calendars, like the 9 levels of consciousness, or what was going on, and how they religiared or put religion in to the masses as they went through those different areas too. And that's where we get into the original gate and stuff like that, where Patty was at. So they were talking, like her and Captain Max Steele, about, again.
You're talking Stargate.
Stargate, yeah, the Eden Stargate.
Off world or off solar system?
Yeah, and speaking of that, we have the soul transits to share with people. So those are actually where all the Stargates and all the soul transits are. So actually I just sent that to the same Harriman, just like when I see something with epigenetics, I gave all the Genome Project to Bruce Lipton to look at it. I don't know, let them go look at it. Let's all go look at it, we'll figure it out. But we were able to see how some of this transgendering was starting to happen too, because of the gene mutation and gene splicing that these different people, including, we've got right down to who was actually on those projects and who the scientists were that were actually doing the gene splicing, inserting things, let's say like the cancer virus and all this, but actually how they've been transgendering people. And so we can also see where they put in the Elven and the LeFay, fairies and all that stuff, which comes back into the Fairy Queen with Elizabeth and Spencer and all that stuff, which goes to the DNA.
So what Elizabeth are you leading to? What are they trying to do? Create a new bloodline, to create an ancient bloodline that's lost, or what?
Yeah, so they're trying to jump in to basically use the people as hosts or whatever and colonize the people. But the thing though is they can't raise their vibration.
Host for what?
Basically for another slave colony. You got to remember there's like they're telling me close to 20,000 planets that they've been using to offshoot all the DNA off to for slave colonizations, workers. So there's a lot of things that are going on that people don't realize. It's very much like Jupiter ascending. I got to actually just see that not too long ago. And that's about culling or the farming or the rapture. And when Max talks about the things going on at the moon basis, and, according to Patty and other people they've been there, I've been listening to Corey Goodnow and David Wilcock and some of these disclosures as well, and talking with Randy Kramer alone. I mean, between him and Patty, you should see in that room for listening to those two for 4 hours. We could have entire universities for this, the galactic historian, and take Andrew into Bartus. But it's for colonization and for a dumbing down of the thing. They wanted to really wipe out the planet, it looked like about 1.5 years ago. And then when icing went back apparently to Mars, what it did is it shut down one of their gates. So they were kind of trapped down here for a bit.
Now, who's trying to knock the place out, and what went back to Mars?
Well, it looked like Elizabeth and those guys, apparently her entourage or different people, or the elite, as they say, we're ready to, draconian stuff, we're ready to use some of this, which is also the concern Patty has with CERN and stuff, trying to blow openings through and bring interdimensional beings through, but allow it for a gate as well. So these are different things along in there. So I think
there's a lot there. I mean, they tried to do something 10 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've been noticing here, and I'm keeping an eye on people that are in the hospitals and stuff. And just I've noticed people, they're losing their memory, or their raw, or the RAM, or whatever we say, or the third eye is being knocked out.
They're trying to disconnect us from source.
Exactly.
As Park said.
And so this is why it's really, really important that when you look at the chakras that I can look at here, I can see if you're connected or disconnected. I can tell if you're still picking up. So these machines that I have, that might have been the gas visualization, but I can also do your chakra check. So I can see if you're connected up or not. And so what we're doing through our energetics and through information, we're sending our own magnetic digitalized pulses. We're setting up our own nation with our own materials and resources, and everyone's community contributing. So we are setting this up so I can actually send magnetic pulses and help you atone up or realign up those chakras. So we can actually do reconnections that way. But everyone
So,
can do
you can reconnect if disconnected.
Yes, absolutely.
So how do we disrupt this CERN thing or whatever, this Hadron Collider thing?
Well, we'll be doing some different things. I'll be doing back here a lot of prayer meditation right here to start with. It's about transmuting things, and it's not that these people are totally evil. I have a different thing. It's everyone's at different levels of information, but we need to do this benevolently. So I mean, through thought, intent, through prayer is huge. Awareness is another thing, but more importantly, is you're only responsible for you. You're not responsible for what's going over there. They'll have their own little karmic thing to deal with. The idea is that you get grounded and that people are able to enjoy this and go through the transition peacefully. And so my thing is to get them alkalized and get all the essential oils and get as much salt saline water as you can, because then you'll be vibrating. It's not going to have the effect on you. In fact, you'll be able to transmute it to something wonderful. So for example, if I have all the cesium, plutonium, uranium, whatever, copper, iron, whatever, boron everyone's missing, and I have it released in here, then I'm in balance with what's outside. It doesn't affect me. In fact, it makes us a little bit more energized. That's about having balance.
Now, this pink salt, how do people get that proper stuff?
I think that they could go to all their health stores. I know all our grocery stores carry it here. It's just a pink Himalayan rock salt. And once you mix it with Himalayan salt, that's what it looks like. So we just keep a little bit in there. And so you just take a couple teaspoons a day in a glass of water first thing. Get the minerals. Most people,
It's 2 o'clock.
What this is, Miles, is this is basically the minerals or the ocean beds or the primordial thing back to Atlantis almost, right? So what you're doing is you're getting minerals that you may not have seen or your genetics haven't seen. It's like a DNA reactivation alone like this. And so what I do, I like to mix things up because I know about sine waves and chakras and areas. So I've got, gourmet salts from all over the planet. So you might want to put in Hawaiian salt. I've got Celtic salt here. I've got Brittany salt here. Atlantic salt, a little Himalayan. You can have from the nearest salt bed that you have.
But you're not talking a whole lot, just a
No.
a
No.
spoonful
And something like this, and something like this is about a teaspoon, and that will give you a 26% brine. You can look this up called Soleil, SOLE, SOLAY, or look up Dr. Barbara Handel. That's one of the best books on water and salt that there is. And that's really what the divine alchemical marriage is. That's the whole maritime and mare and all that. So, that way you can navigate a little bit better, have a fun ride.
This has really been fantastic. I think we've been going for 90 minutes almost. Do you want to go for a part two at some time?
I would absolutely love to. And what I'd love to
talk to Patty as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Minervino, most of what I'll be doing with will be done co-creatively and as colleagues. And we see each other not only professionally, but intimately as friends as well. And so we'll be doing a lot of the radio shows and that with Dr. Tony Wright Minervino. So he does a lot of remote viewing too. So I would be very happy to introduce all of you as well. That'll be my greatest pleasure.
This is fantastic. This is a breath of fresh air.
So, and once we're done, we'll sit maybe for about 15 minutes outside the actual taping. And it'd be interesting just to do a session so that you can feel it. Because there's not too many people around the planet that I haven't done this with, or the scalar technology. They don't feel the moving or the shaking moving in, because we're helping you. And you're basically assisting us. It's a co-creative thing. So we're sharing all our technology. So this is about access awareness. We own nothing, but we access everything. And that's what having a peace is. And that's why technically the clan mothers are technically over the militaries, the armies, and all that. So they're slowly starting to contact me and take me very. I just say, please, we require this. We require new computers. We require some assistance. We're going to require setting this up again. I want to have a TV up there. I want to bring the whole tribe there and have great dancing and stuff. And with what they've done, Patty and I have spent more time the last couple months just figuring out how to reshunt it so we can have beautiful waterfalls and towering to make it better than it was when we kind of came there. So I've spent 2 weeks just like in a tent out there, just getting orientated. It's beautiful. So that's where the flag's hanging, by the way. This is the one bear mama. You'll see white bear mama climbing up the trees there. And I have a flag flying in that thing. So they call it the interprovincial, thing of like Saskatchewan and Alberta, but we're taking it over as the official bear cam land. And it's sitting up there. So just to let you know, that is the peace flag. And that's what our tribe does there. And, please, if anyone wants to, get a hold of me, I usually through Skype, called Karen Mack or clanmother13@gmail with a K. And Facebook. I love social media. Why not?
Great, fantastic. This is a wonderful, positive thing. Wonderful communication, living.
Yeah, this is about transmuting. And I mean, I've gone through all the stuff too, like Cynthia and everything else. But you know what? I think we're supposed to be having the best times ever, and the most exciting. When we're in a state of excitement, it's all beautiful, and then I get to meet beautiful people, and kindred souls like yourself, and that we're all related. So that's why I want to go, geez, Miles is a brother. Yes. I always laughed when I met with the guys and they came to tell me a little bit about this, right? And Rob Nicholson has got BC Prospectors, and there's a whole thing called Legend and then Stargates. And he was part of the inside military and he protected the Stargates that came to me, actually. And so I've got to see some of the things firsthand in those petroglyphs and caves and stuff. And it was an amazing thing. But Miles, you would have laughed when they said to me, "You're the bear mama with the 2 swords and the tartan." I went, "That's really hilarious. What else do you got?" And now that I realize when you go back to the, sweat lodges, and we're setting up the original mother lodges too, and how beautiful it can be back there. We all had our versions and like eco-friendly homes and how this is going to be. I mean, there's some great things coming up. Just a hint of what's coming out now, all those free energy machines, that's due to a lot of the stuff that was in those proclamations. And so people
Which proclamations?
I sent a couple proclamations that I did with the assistance of Lucas Monday Wing there out of Cambridge. Basically, if they go into Facebook and they go to Karen Ann Macdonald, you'll see under my albums, we sent proclamations out to Elizabeth and to everyone else, and about 10,000 of them. So every Privy Council to the UK, to Scotland, to Ireland, to whatever, all the things that we have to do appropriately for that. And what else? A governor, the MPs, whatever, everyone was put, and they were given those proclamations, and they're supposed to understand the laws right now. So, there is no claims to be made. And when I start hearing people think that they've got hereditary claims to the Windsor throne or whatever, you don't, because it's been dissolved, and we're not going to allow that. And that technically is arrestable. It's ridiculous. And especially these women have got to learn how to not only love themselves, but how can you love yourself if you can't love someone else? Love is the whole glue of this entire cosmic universe. And the thing is, by the way, Miles, I absolutely love you. I just had to get that out. I love you.
There's a big giggle here. It's good fun. Thank you. I love you. You're wonderful.
Yeah, my casa is your casa, the kind of thing. But, that's about having community things, and that as brothers and sisters, we can assist people. So, yeah, when you got the right, secret, and you got the combination, it's all a beautiful thing. It's sacred. That's really what it is. It's a sacred thing between people and having beloveds. And that's what really I think everyone wishes to have, is their beloved. And so we really encourage the women to learn about this. And in Anastasia, it's one of the best series anyone can get.
Yes, it's a telepathic series of books. I noticed it was like communicating on other consciousness. There's about 9 of them, or 10 of them, I think now.
Well, there's been 10 released, but 9 is out. 8.2.
I think there's 2 8s, I think.
Yeah. And then I was actually contacted by them as well to be out to the Domans and some of my lineage out there years ago with Galen Ray. And it's an amazing series for people to learn about, but that's how we're going to do the gardens, where you put the seeds in your mouth for 9 minutes and then you grow your own food.
Oh, for 9 minutes. I didn't realize it was that long. Yeah.
Yeah, it was about 9 minutes to do the imprint of the programming and the frequency of the foods. Because
and then
you want
your feet, what about that you're pushing? We're talking about you put your saliva, it puts your stuff into the seed.
yeah.
So the seed then knows that you need certain minerals and nutrients and things. And then you're meant to put it in with your bare feet, is that right? Under the ground.
Yes, we're grounding it. It's like, yeah, we're dancing on it. Kind of want to do belly dances or something, but tribal dance. But, that's a really cool thing. So I really encourage people to look at that. And there's a free PDF. I now have Michael actually reading it on. There's a free PDF you can go on. Everything's free in my world. It just takes me sometimes a little bit long, or in my planet, I should say, universe. My universe, it's all free. So I just wait to see how we can get it show up. But it's out there. There's stuff on Facebook, and that's what we really want to do is co-create that. So a lot of people don't realize the tartans came back with the hand festing, came with the tying of your hands, which is in the sweat lodges. So everyone's got little bits and pieces. It's kind of like that whirling rainbow time. That's what we're gathering, is all the best of the information and putting it back together cohesively. So people didn't get a lot of that. And it wasn't until I went to all that and I said, why is all the Indians up here speaking Hebrew? But it was back to the Druid stuff. And then it was back to Stonehenge. And then I went, oh my gosh, when we went into the sweat lodge and they were putting the prayer cloths out. And there are some that have shown me in their lodges, they still keep their tartans. So the Haida Gwaii, when I went out there into Kamloops and I went to the RCMP and I said, arrest Elizabeth, please, and all the heirs or anyone that's doing this kind of acts of treason, act of war. The Haida Gwaii met with me in just south of Secwepemc Nations, just south of Kamloops at the Chase Indian band there at Nesquith Tribes. And I was staying out there with those people, and they came with their full regalia, and they showed me things, probably no little white girls, or what I've been with, they're elders, as we know alders, trees. And again, things have been lost in somewhat translation, but you can see the tartans, and you can see where the colors were beyond the chakras and beyond the four directions, and learning the original things. So that's why I appreciate when we see things being decoded, and the Masonic thing, and Michael Tessarian coming out, exposing the female Illuminati and the desecration of the divine feminine. We really need to come back to that and to balance, and the divine masculine. This is really about honoring and respect, and that teepee, it's not like this, it's like this. It's like our Stargate with Vega, Epsilon, and Lyra. It looks like a Turtle's Island. That's why they all think in their legends they came off Turtle Island from that sector of the Star Nations, or their star blankets. And that's what the Star Knowledge was Standing Eagle is about, and Tony is here to basically heal, as he calls the light bodies. Okay? I have a different terminology, that's all that is. But
the terminology is
I just I'm learning how to speak law as opposed to legalese, and natural as opposed to allopathic. So, but having been, it's integrated and taking the most exciting things out of everything that we have to share, because there's great stuff everywhere, and there is no them or whatever. It's all about us. It's a weism, moving to the we wellness as opposed to I am and the illness. So if we take that ego thing and come back to how can we let us do this, Miles? How can we let us help the people the best way we can, please? And I really appreciate that. This is let us assist.
Yes.
Right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Open it out.
Yeah, we got to open the heart up. And some people, this is the longest, from the condor to the eagle, or eagle to the condor, from the mind to the heart. But it's all about coming back into here and having that love. And I really encourage the women. They've got to love themselves. So we're going to see a lot of things that aren't
absolutely
on a foundation of love. They're going to polarize away. Because when I start teaching the women that any woman that's actually using money is basically violating the peace laws, and she's doing a dishonor to the men as well. And it's a form of prostitution, just like a constitution or Bill of Rights.
How do people make that leap? I mean, how do they do that?
They're going to have to do their education, do some really inner soul thing. And like I said, just even the fact of knowing pH, you can only be dumbed down if you're in an acidic, depressed state. If you even change your pH, you change your world. You can change just how you perceive things. You do some essential oils. You just add in a couple superfoods like goji berries, cannabis seeds. Just people think hemp hearts. Get raw cacao. It's a purple vibratory food. Raw chocolate. One or two things will make you feel better. If we can help heal that mind, everyone's mind, and use frankincense or cedar wood. I just put it on a few people, and they're just amazed. I have peppermint in my water, lemon in my water, make it really healthy. And then that's where people can transition to the idea of being a solarian or breatharian. I know what it's like to be an Anadiate, like
A solarian is somebody who lives on sun?
the solar system,
solarian.
energy, prana, chi,
And
whatever.
breatharian is...
Same thing. Yeah, you're living off the energy of the light. So that's what Anastasia talks about when we would just go through the gardens and you would just live off the essences of the divine rays of everything here. You were fed just constantly spiritual nourishment. So as you start going from foods to superfoods to essential oils, you're raising your vibration to the point that you can just be. So that's where Jasmine, or out in your area is someone called, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jericho Genesis Sunfire. Jericho Genesis
Didn't meet him in the pub last night, no.
You didn't, probably. But anyway, black trainer David Wolf brought in, and he's amazing. Or if they go to the Supreme Master Series, you can look up the Anadiates, which are basically like yoginis, where they can go for years or months without eating or drinking. So that's the idea of being here but not here. That's kind of really the angelic realm.
You mean you're not even needing water?
Yeah, there are some people that don't do water either. So, and Patty will talk a little bit about that, depending on the original Starseed program. Some of these people, these are the superheroes as opposed to sometimes super soul dyers or soldiers. You can actually see some of these people here. So this is where they've progressed to, or Jasmine, or they have some once in a while. Like I went for about 3-4 weeks or a month, without eating. It's not a big deal. I've done that, not eating and not drinking, and just done urine therapy as well.
Well, how do you do that without demineralizing? Without you end up just starving yourself, and
Actually, you don't. Like you've got to, do it in a bit of a processing. But I actually did urine therapy. So when I was actually doing all these things, like we are not paying taxes, and I am not allowing you, their father to pull a gun off at my children's head. This is not acceptable.
This is big stuff here now.
Yes, and actually the pedophile ring alone with these lawyers and stuff in Saskatoon and what was going on in Martinsville. And I know Claudia Bryden would be another great one to interview. I'm sure we're going to be chapters in each other's books there, but she was the one that they disclosed to. And that was happening to my children at the same time.
I mean, the Hampstead Heath thing has been turning very bad here. Linda McKenzie said to leave the country. How do people do this safely? Or how do you feel is the best way of doing this?
Yeah, mine is one is to get healthy with this and get their minds freed. I'm not in fear. I mean, now it's to the point, Miles, where I can go into the courtroom and I have the judges bow to me and understand me. They say that. And they're sending people in to assist. Now, that took a lot of things to do. I mean, I've been through every jail system there possibly is. I've been in North Battleford where they've injected me and knocked me out for 4 days. But I had the benevolence of having all the practitioners running skio machines on me and having things to neutralize it, because I would not submit. I would not stand up in the courts for the judges. So they broke my arm for that. One of the sheriffs there in Saskatoon when Trevor did that. So I have probably one of the largest files in all those court cases. And they're all going to come to pass. They're all going to have their days as well. And they're not going to have any diplomatic immunity in my courts, because I am one of the judges and the final judges for the Hague Court. Because we're going to reset up. And they are going to be having their stuff. That's what part of this is. Those disclosures and stuff for the mass arrest, that was part of what was done in the proclamations close to 2 years ago. Actually 3. In December 2011.
This is fighting talk.
We're quite well aware where we're going with this. And we know what they're doing there, why they're doing things in the rituals and stuff, and the gamut and the prayer song, John Divine. Patty and I have got basically everything covered over the last 2 years, but I'm more concerned about we have to heal our tribe first. and getting to safe places. So I've set that up. We're in motion. We require the assistance of anyone listening. We could use all the friends we could use. And if people are in this area and they're up in these areas and they don't know where a safe place to be, well, that's Elkwater, Reeser, and actually the Kootenays for people on the West Coast. Up into the things north of Nelson in the upper part of the Kootenays is one of the safer areas because you've got access to spring water there. There are 4 springs up in those areas. So you got to know where the water is. And my water on the Kootenays there actually feeds all the West Coast. So everything coming down there, and this one it's called the Milk River, an Old Man River, right at Battle Creek. So I know where they were having all their battles now.
Those battles were really rituals, I take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we know where actually the things have been buried and where some of the medicine wheels were, and we found the trajectories. And Patty's got basically, you will absolutely love, because I'm just talking today, but when I can have Patty doing the PowerPoints and you can see the Stonehenge, and then with the actual imaging, what it looked like in kind of the teepee form, and how it looked like the original cairns and like what would have been at Meath, where they did the coronation of the actual clan mothers back then. You could see the beautiful like pit homes and stuff, and what they did in the tribals and your 28 pillars, and how they did this with what stones. So I actually hold all the stones for all those to put back the original medicine wheel for all the nations. So they were gifted to me by every tribe on this continent here it's called the Sacred Site. It's vortex.org, but also Sacred Sites and Shrine was set up by Roger Nelson. And so all the different particular tribes have community contributed like a potlatch. I'm going to be the most stoned woman there will ever be. And I would just like for 1 second, if I may.
I've done this actually because it's an immense amount of information.
Okay, so if everyone would like to just join with me, let us all come together in here. So if you just close your eyes for just 1 moment. I'm just going to do a bit of a clearing. And if you have some water, you can take a drink of it or a sip now. And then we'll have another sip when we're done. And this is so that we can have all our friends come together and to heal this planet and all the other planets. The healing of the waters, of the lands, and of the people, and all the animals and the fish, and to let them do their own healing as well, so that we'll have no more slaughter, acts of war, or treason. And we could come back into peace and into a state of excitement. Oh, and so it is. Thank you so much, Miles, and for everyone at the BASIS program. They're like brothers and sisters. I've got to know each of you a little bit. And I look forward to more of our interactions and our communications. And after this, I'll be happy to show you some of the other stuff, which is always
absolutely fantastic.
I don't do full disclosure, well, a complete set of particulars, but that's between you and me for your to have your confidentiality maintained, so that you can have that, so you can have your total freedom that way. But it's beautiful to do that, and I'd be happy to give that. And cheers.
Well, I didn't have a glass of water, but I'll do that.
Please do that.
With good old Wiltshire water. Yes.
And Chandini Ray is amazing.
It's
and
for those watching. Yeah.
Yeah, because this blessing goes out not only just to you and to me, and but it will go out to all that on the archives and stuff too. On that. So that's what we like to do. So
this is wonderful, refreshing, positive, and sheer brilliance. And I look forward to seeing you again. It's the first time we've done this in this new location, and from sunny, rainy Wiltshire. C'est la vie.
Blessings. Thank you so much. Salah and all that exciting thing. We're going to have the most exciting